Sam, good afternoon. Welcome to the show. It's great to have you on today.
Yeah, thanks very much. I was pleased your brother could make the intro.
Yeah. Well, for today, I think it'd help for our audience if you just want to start by giving a little background on your history and where you came from, how you got to where you are today.
Yeah, for sure. So I sell to higher ed, and that's the only sales job I've ever had. Well, actually, no, that's not true. That's the only proper sales job that I've had. I had jobs where I was selling Christmas trees. I'd sold excursions for a premium hotel when I was parking cars and stuff.
All right.
But in terms of careers that people probably might care about to some degree, this was like the first formalized sales role that I'd had selling to higher ed. So I worked for a company called Bibliu. We started off more like Spotify for textbooks, and now, quite a number of years down the line, we're a bookstore services provider. So if you have picture a campus bookstore, yeah, there's a lot less books in it nowadays, but that's fundamentally what we sell. And I went from being a sales rep, so I was selling in the UK market. We kind of saturated that,
Okay.
and then we started selling in the US. It takes a while to find your feet, and it is, but we made it work, found traction. Then 5 years later, we now got over 140 stores, I think, across the country.
Wow.
In
In the United
Yeah,
States.
yeah, yeah. So I'm in Chicago now.
Okay.
I call here home. Moving down to Texas next month, actually. So if anyone's saying this in Austin, looking for friends. But I I was a sales rep, and what happened at the time is we went through the whole zero interest rate period. So we had a big sales team, big marketing team, and we were kind of making like 100 cold calls a day per SDR, and there were seven of them. And I was just, I didn't really see it working. So I was like, hey, guys, can you just leave from North Carolina down to Florida alone, and I'll do my own prospecting? And it worked. So while I was selling, I was just doing my own prospecting. Anyway, fast forward a bit, I ended up in a role where I'm effectively responsible for lead gen for Bibliu.
Okay.
Kind of went down this wormhole because you get sent to a country where you don't really know anyone, you don't really have anything else to do, so you end up becoming friends with all these other vendors. So I ended up then starting a subreddit for other people selling to higher ed, going and meeting other people, and I have a little agency that basically sets up these intelligent systems for other higher ed vendors. So that's kind of how I ended up here today. I was just trying to solve my own problems, and it's been a fun journey so far. But we're 5.5 years into this stint at Bibliu because I was an intern here
Okay.
way back. Went and made PowerPoints for a bit for mid-market private equity, and then came back here.
Now tell me this. It is rare to find sales reps, people in sales that stick at a place for 6, 7 years in today's market. And when I looked at your background, you were an account executive, you got into being a reseller, you're now leading the demand generation team. For those people that are listening, that are in a spot where they're saying, hey, I want to progress in my career, I want to get that internal promotion. What were some of the actions that you were taking internally that you felt opened up those opportunities to keep making those jumps at your current work?
Yeah, it was actually a guy who gave me this advice. He rejected me for a job in the past. So when I was younger, I just wanted to make money, and I guess that's still true that like that's important. But at that time in my life, not really anything else mattered because I didn't have any money, and I was going, okay, what can I? So it was a hedge fund. I don't know how I managed to get through the door. I had literally none
Okay.
of the required skills, but I was like, okay. And he was like, if you want to make something happen, you just need to find somewhere that's somewhat chaos with just things in the air and where you can just grab onto as many things and then just grab onto as many things and make them good where there was chaos. And Bibliu's just always been a lot of it's the culture of it, right? It's like, okay, we're not going to tolerate just going slowly because life is short. People expect better. We can do better faster. So
Right.
it wasn't so much the Bibliu product. I believed in the founder and I believed in the team that was moving stuff fast. And I could just pick up bits of opportunity by just, instead of complaining about something, I'd just solve it for myself. So that's
Great
kind of what
example.
happened. Yeah, and it worked. You just need a place that can give you permission to do that, because it's not like I haven't tried that at other companies and had my wrists slapped for it, right? So you need somewhere where it's encouraged, and there are places where it's encouraged. So I guess it just felt more like home. And the other thing, it's less so in America, and it's honestly one of the things I love about America, is that sales is somewhat respected because it's recognized without sales, you basically don't have a business. It's kind of not so true, or at least the mindset. Britain's halfway between Europe and America culturally. Like, that's just the story of it over time. And they'll see it more as like the general public. Oh, you do sales. They picture a used car salesman because that's what the general public interface with. Like, unless you buy B2B products, that's what they think of when they think of sales. When it kind of became clearer that it was just helping find people who you could help most and then contacting them and being like, hey, saw you doing this, you know, you could do this, and this has worked for other people that are similar to you because of this. How about it? I was then suddenly like, saw myself as literally helping people, and some of the people who we did help, we then became friends with because you'd helped them. So it then just became a different game. Like it was some CROs would hate it because I could never tell you where I was relative to quota. I could like, and now I have to, right? Because you like manage people and you can't just be responsible for yourself. But I was just always thought, if I'm just doing the best that I can, as long as I can like sketch out some viable path there, I then just ignore it and execute on that. Clearly that doesn't work as things get bigger, but
Well, tell me, I'd be curious because what you're saying earlier, I think, is a really powerful idea of salespeople are not used car salesmen. Instead, you can have this mentality where you really are helping people, and you can have a little. I mean, we're still trying to make money, but a little more altruism in the work that you're doing. And we will get to AI tools. We'll get to that, but I think these philosophy pieces are really important. Just aside from American culture and it being a little different from coming from England, what were some of the, how did that shift happen in your brain where you said, "Oh yeah, I'm not a used car salesman. I actually have value to bring to people. I want to help them."
I think it was actually one. So there's a couple of events that triggered that. One was there's one specific response that stands out in my brain where I'd been doing these cold emails, like testing these various things that I'd scraped. And this one president in South Carolina of a college there came back to me and said, "Dear Mr. Holding," you know, they do the Mr. Holding, like they like doctor thing. "I ignore most cold solicitations, but I found yours helpful and interesting. I would like it if we could explore this further with these members of my team." And it was like the classic, very South Carolina, quite like formal, quite polite. But I'd been able to deliver enough value in that message that even if nothing else happened, he thought of me as at least a helpful person. And then I guess as I was existing within this role, people would try to sell stuff to me. And I've had a couple of failed startups over the years as well that have also meant that people have been trying to sell stuff to me. And you kind of start realizing that the people who I was buying stuff off are just the people who were just trying to be helpful and understand where it could fit. And the people who I wasn't buying stuff off were where they just come parrot the pitch at you. It's completely non-relevant. Yeah, I just didn't really care. And you kind of see it. It's actually one of the worst things, I think. As some companies get bigger, you get people put on this talk track and then they're just talking at you and they don't know it in any level of detail. You'll say something that's basically an objection. You can phrase it as, "Oh, I'm currently solving this like this." And then they'll just ram it like that. For example, like outbound for higher ed, you don't need the email infrastructure to send 100,000 emails a day. It's just not what we do. And one of the guys who I respect most highly literally just started with the question, "So how many emails are you sending a day?" And I said, and he was like, "Oh, it's relatively low. Is that like a cap?" And I'm like, "No, it's just because the market's this size. I want to touch them at this regular cadence. Does that sound reasonable?" He's like, "No, that's actually a fairly good cadence to reach out to those people. It's just your market's small. You probably don't need this." But that guy I've gone on to recommend to multiple other people just because I felt like I got some level of value from that. And equally, where I've spoken to other people, so I just bought another little tool to help me appear more in the AI search. They just understood what I was trying to do and how it fit, because I don't really care about all the other logos or the general stuff. People care fundamentally about what they're trying. Like, I buy things to solve my own problems. So it was just being. I try to. It's nice being a salesperson, getting sold to, because you both see the good and the bad and what works, and then you can just take that.
So it sounds like you spend a lot of time thinking through what is my intention in this conversation. Like, my intention's to help, and those intentions are going to come through when you think about what you've got thousands of emails. You might send tens of thousands in a given week to all these different prospects. What intention are you trying to put behind the messaging? So just like when you're on the end user being sold to, what are you wanting your prospects to see when they open up the email? What intention are you wanting them to feel when they're opening the emails that you're constructing and sending out?
And this is where higher ed is somewhat, it's not unique relative to the world, but it's unique versus selling a HR system to any B2B SaaS of a certain size, because your market is effectively 2,450 schools that have an FTE of above 500. And I don't want to say that you don't care about the smaller ones, but you probably need to be above that size to hit your number or sell things. Like, if you have any level of service, you're not going to be able to charge enough to cover your costs. So there's 2,450 people that you care about. And maybe within that organization, if you really boil it down, there's probably only 2 people who you care about speaking to in both of those, maybe 3. But so there's less than 10,000 market participants. It doesn't feel unreasonable that the aim should be to get to know each one of those as people. And that means, and even if you can't know each of them as an individual, I want to know how they're solving the problems that we solve today. Anything that means that there's some nuance to what I'm applying. So maybe they're doing things a certain way that mean that you'd configure it like this, or maybe it's like this, and they have certain pain points attached to what they're currently doing it. I want to know with regards to timings. So, for example, if you're selling, and this is the majority of the higher ed spend, people are on 3 to 5 year contracts. If someone's just signed a contract, they're just probably not, they don't want to speak to me right now. Like, maybe in a year, maybe in 6 months, I can be like, hey, how's it going? Saw you did this. We'd seen this is useful, but just try add some value. But the people who you really want is, I want to be able to look at the map and go, okay, these people are likely in the market and look like they have the pain that I can help solve. I want to be able to speak to them and speak to the pain if I've never interacted with them before, so I can be as helpful as possible, and then maybe they'll open up and get to know me. And if I don't, and if I have spoken to them before, I need to show that I've spoken to them before, or that at least someone at the company has, because you feel a bit dirty, right? Like, if you get an email from a sales rep, insert whatever company, and you'd spoken to someone else there 3-4 months before, or even a year before, you're like, come on, I'm a person. Like, we spoke for a few hours. Like, we have all this history and we're just not going to ignore it. So this is where kind of that AI stuff became into it, because I just wanted maximum relevant information. That doesn't mean just having 50 fields in your CRM. That's like a small number of relevant fields on each account, so I can know that person as well as possible and give them helpful information. And then also capture the historic context so I can show respect to them as a person. And, the example that I always give is, there's one prospect who, if I go into Claude that I've connected up to Salesforce and was like, prioritize these ops, if I told it to ignore all the historical conversations, it would look like a great op. I know that guy's retiring in 6 months' time and he frankly just doesn't care. Like, he's just closing out his stuff. So that's fine. Like, he might look great, but, wish him well in his retirement, maybe offer to meet him for coffee because you kind of become friends, and maybe he'll introduce you to someone who could be of help, but he's not doing it. So let's spend our time in the right places. and just go, okay, how can I know these people as well as possible? The same way goes, I got this baseball cap on or whatever. You try to make it as close to B2C sales as you can, where people have all this information on you, like the things you watch, the things you do, not in a creepy way, but there's a reason that those ads work and are targeted. And I'm not saying do it in ads, but B2B should still be, I want to know you, I want to know your problems, I want to see how I can help you at the right time. And we're just trying to do that in a bit more of an opaque world.
So I think this is a great transition then as we start talking about how you're really using AI day to day in your work. Because what I'm hearing is you have an issue where your addressable market, let's say it's 2,450 accounts. You've got 2 to 3 prospects at each account, less than 10,000 total prospects to reach out to. And of those 10,000, they're on a buying cycle of every 3 to 5 years. So over a third of them aren't even currently shopping because they might have just signed a contract. So now you have this group, you need to get to know them and know when they're buying, what they like, what kind of hats they want to buy. Tell me more about that problem you face. And then I want to hear kind of how you've gone about solving that problem both in a pre and post AI coming to market world.
For sure. So I mentioned that I have this agency. Let's take one of those, just it's a bit more complex than bookstores and perhaps offers people more value in how they can think about it. They sell a CRM to higher ed. And the CRM has multiple components to it, and people are solving different things in different ways. So the first thing I want to know is, do you have a CRM or not? Because it's meaningfully different to, hey, we do this, this, and this versus these people, your contract's coming up, you can eliminate these costs of all these other tools, etc. Versus, are you doing it on a spreadsheet? Like it is fundamentally different. And it affects timing, it affects the message, it probably affects who you're selling to and where that money's coming from as well. So that's what I care about, and we need that piece of information. The other thing that you need to attach to that is, of course, contact information. And all of these data fields that I'm talking about, I believe, and again, this is different if you're doing bigger B2B sales in a bigger market, you might not want them all living in your CRM. My view is that anyone selling to higher ed has such a TAM constrained market that they should have every account in a CRM. So I can go into, I've connected Salesforce up to Claude. So then I'm like, give me all of, let's say I win a school that's with one specific vendor. I can be like, give me all of the lookalike schools within a certain geographic region that have the same setup and a contract expiring within X period. And that's what good looks like there. So before these AI tools, I started off just doing it myself, because people confuse the automation stuff. They jump straight into automation without really working out what they're automating. Like, do it yourself 3 times to work out what good looks like, and then you're just trying to scale that. So for me, it was understanding who's using what when their contract's expiring, the relevant contact information, then the historical context. Historical context is fine. That's just emails, calls, things we're capturing, meetings at conferences. But who's using what? First, it was me searching for it. And then I hired a guy in Bangladesh off Fiverr who was basically going around the internet and inspecting the HTML on pages and looking for different clues, and he'd periodically fill in this spreadsheet. And then the first tool that came along that helped me do it at scale was Clay, and we were effectively using Clayagent. So that's, I believe it's Parallel or Exa under the hood. It's basically these tools that can go and search the internet and return structured outputs. So I could say, hey, go and look at X community college, tell me how many campuses they have, and it will return a value of 3. So you can go and ask it to run certain queries. But I wanted to, you want that data to be as good as possible, because if all my messaging, all my timing is going to be incumbent on this thing, I then built some scrapers where I then have these little AI agents go through their HTML, and it's like, oh, okay, we're now looking for these clues to identify incumbents, because not everyone will write about it.
And are these
All that to be
agents
said,
are using Claude for those agents to go out and do that crawling? How where those agents exist and how are they going out?
yeah, it's so picture a table, and this table has this is where selling to higher ed or K through 12 is quite good because someone's literally mapped your market for you. In the case of higher ed, it's called iPads. You can go and just download a database that has your whole market just mapped out. You're then basically asking the agent, hey, look at this school in this state with this URL, and based upon this prompt, go and find this. The LLM that I will use for that depends on the complexity of the task. So I'll use 4.0 Mini if it's a basic task, just because it's cheaper. And the more complex the task, the more expensive the API that I'll call. So you might use Opus 4.6, or I guess this morning 4.7. I haven't actually tried 4.7, it's been like 3 hours. But that's what's going and searching the text-based clues. The kind of interesting thing about, so all that to be said, that's my process for identifying who's using what, but you can also use technographics. You can also use the technographic scraper that a friend built for me and we kind of maintain together, which pulls down the HTML of a school's site, goes and screens it for clues. And that's more robust. And, you know, you get a lot of vendors selling these technographics, but some of it, it depends how far you want to push it, right? The text-based agent works great. The scraper works even better, but it adds in a layer of complexity. So if you're just starting out, it's
So
less valuable.
if I'm a demand gen lead, let's say I'm the head of demand gen at a organization that is pursuing K-12 higher education, and I'm trying to find the most accurate data possible. Because I know in my work I see this. We are plagued by inaccurate data constantly, not knowing who's using what tool. If you were to just hack it and say, here is, in the past you'd go buy this huge database. Now you can tap in this API, grab this information. How would you coach another head of demand gen to go and clean up all their data so that in their CRM it's shinier than it's ever been?
Yeah, that's a good question. So there's effectively three sources for these technographics. There's text-based clues, there's clues in the HTML, and then there's contract and purchase order data. And they're the three that exist. And that basically goes in order of difficulty to get. So text-based clues easiest, contract and purchase order data hardest. The text-based clues is the little research agent that I was using in Clay that I spoke about. There's other tools out there like Cargo, or you can even just disintermediate Clay and go straight to Parallel or Exa. It might cost you a little more and the results are maybe not as good because Clay's built some around their AI research agents, but you can have anyone non-technical could download the iPads list and write a prompt to say go and search for, you know, whatever library discovery layer they use. Who are they using for their learning management system? They're going to have written that in text. So that AI research agent will go and do that. And that's like the lowest, that's the easiest to access. The thing that I've only seen me doing, at least within higher ed, and I suspect it's because you have to run a bunch of proxies because the school's websites will try and block you from doing it, is they're pulling their HTML down to then screen it for basically like you're searching across buttons effectively. So say they're using a CRM. I want to first have the AI research agent find their enroll now page, and then I want to run the HTML scraper across that to basically find out dot navigate would show you like EAB's navigate tool. And before you set up the AI research agent, you as a human kind of have to go and see that those clues exist. Or you can point the AI at it and try and get it to do it. But given that you're going to run this across 2,450 schools and you will spend money on it, and the idea being that you should run it on a regular cadence, it's worth getting it right. So text-based clues, HTML, and then the third and final component
Before
is
you
the
talk about the
purchase.
third one, before the third one, so practically you're going to a website for this second point you're talking about with text-based clues, and you're just like inspecting elements or pulling the source code, and you're looking at those pieces to get the clues in order to inform you how you're going to coach whichever LM you're using to go and do this work.
Yeah, exactly. And you might not even, to be honest, the AI so the first text base is all an AI. That's all an AI searching around. And what's quite nice is that if you write it in such a way, it will go and search like job descriptions. So the text-based clue doesn't necessarily have to be on their website in the place that you would expect. You might see that the job description says that they use Oracle PeopleSoft. Okay, great. I know that your student information system's Oracle PeopleSoft, because otherwise, why are you hiring someone who needs to know how to use that? The HTML clues work, they're more like a match, but where the AI comes into it is I need to know which page to start matching, because otherwise I'm going to have to screen 2,000 pages of your website. If I'm interested in your library tools, I want to say to an AI agent first, go and find the page of the library website that talks about this, return that URL, and then I will set the scraper off looking at that page. So it will expand out from there if it doesn't find it. So say I have it go to the first 100 pages from that, but I don't just want to send it to the school's main website and then say off you go, because you might get false positives. A lot of these tools, it's the private equity mess, right, where things have just been stuck together and you're like, is that what I think it is, or is that something that's been acquired and they've cross-sold? So you want to have a certain level of certainty. Like if you're selling dining services, for example, point it at the dining services page first before you then go scrape it.
Okay.
And that's effective. It's then just a match on the HTML key. So say you see K2, that's like a tool that got acquired. Okay, I'm not just looking for EAB, whatever, I'm looking for K2 as well.
Okay. Yeah. So you're whittling, before you scrape, whittling it down, making sure you have the right pages, and then scraping those pages accordingly.
Yeah. And all this stuff as well, it takes time and it takes effort, but you're going to run it on a regular cadence, and it's kind of the foundation for everything you do. So it feels kind of painful at the time because obviously you don't get any instant leads out of doing that. It's just a data set that you have in front of you. But if you're only winning within a particular segment, it's very helpful, because I'm then like, well, there's only 300 lookalikes to this. So your boss will be like, we have a TAM of 2,450. Well, you don't really, because you've only sold to the schools that have this specific thing, and it makes sense for this specific group. So actually, your TAM's like 300 schools. So it's helpful on that front too, because half of this, and I'm not very good at, the whole managing people and manage upwards about it. I like to be just left to get on with it, but it does make it far easier to just tell a convincing story. Well, A, because it's also just grounded in the truth. Like, people don't like it, but it's like, this is what we're actually working with.
Yeah. Well, yeah. What is? And sorry, I cut off. What is your third point you wanted to jump into for?
Yeah, so this is where it comes down to there's quite a lot of new tools on the market. So the incumbent provider was called GovSpend, and there's more recent entrants like Starbridge, NationGraph, Pursuit, etc. And the biggest value add I see of these tools is their contract expiry data. So that's specifically, let's say you have Canvas, a learning management system, and I'm trying to sell in Blackboard. I care when your contract's expiring, and I also care how much you paid for that and what you're currently paying. If you got some mega deal, maybe I just can't compete, right? Like, or at least I have, going into that conversation, I have some understanding of where you're at. Those guys basically collect that data in a way that I would advise independent provider like me not do for myself, because the way that they get it is they FOIA all of these schools. The school isn't going to love me if I go and submit a bunch of freedom of information requests. It's also slow, it's time consuming, and frankly it's more efficient to just buy these providers, providing that they have good contract coverage. So those tools exist, and if you have the budget, you can buy them as part of that. They also do contacts, help you find RFPs, a load of other stuff. But in terms of this like technographic conversation, that's kind of what they do. And those tools are just interesting because they basically make the things that I've just talked about more accessible to more people. So I guess like the marginal value of Sam Holding is decreasing every day as they get better. But also, how can I leverage them? Yeah, so it's a crazy time, but some of those tools are pretty good. You just need to make sure that you're going to them for the right things, as I see it.
And how are you engaging with that data inside of a GovSpend or a Starbridge? And are you using your Claude account or whichever account you're using to go and get that data and bring it back in and manipulate it?
Yeah, and this is where I don't know. None of us really know what's optimal here because it hasn't been around for long enough. But my bet is I want Claude, sorry, to be the place that I go and I open up. And that's not to say that I want to be locked into the Anthropic ecosystem. I'm like not up for that either. But at the moment, the place where I'm going to make queries is Claude. So I want to take that information, I want to put it into my CRM because that's where I'm then querying for sales data within Claude. This is where I think sales like needs to kind of get its act together because for too long we've tolerated dirty CRMs and that's just like CRM cleaning felt like a chore. Well, okay, but now imagine a world in which all of your company can go and get real-time intelligence, not just on the ops that are coming up, but your existing accounts from Claude using natural language. So just plain English. They can be like, give me all of the open ops, when we've last spoken to them, who they're coming from and the associated win rate with each of them. We just won this one, show me more similar accounts. And you can start plugging in invoicing tools from finance. You can start pulling in customer success tracking tools. And to be clear, I haven't done all of this because it's just like, it's so new, but the end state is where you have an ultimate intelligence layer that anyone can come and ask anything and get work done within a single place. So what I'm doing currently, everything goes basically to Salesforce, and then Claude is where I'm interacting with that sales data.
Do you have an API set up between let me ask this, how is your data passing between Salesforce and Claude currently?
Yeah, this is interesting. So I've got and this is where it's hard because every vendor's trying to lock you into being the AI intelligence layer because that's where the value accrues, and I'm just saying no, I want to use Claude. So I don't want to be locked in the Salesforce, Einstein, or whatever. I just don't want it. So I use and you can do, and this is also where it becomes, are you serving you or are you trying to serve the company? So me interacting with Salesforce, I'm using the Salesforce command line interface with Claude Code, and it's great. I'm just in the terminal and I interact with it really fast. However, you clearly do not want to give that to everyone because they could in theory go in there and be like, hey, I want to delete everything. And then it will say, are you sure? And you go, yes, and then you delete everything. So we don't want that for everyone. So I've got there's an open source Salesforce MCP. So effectively it's calling various APIs when it's told to, like it'll work out which one it should call. And that means that we can use Salesforce from within the Claude desktop app, clearly much more favorable for your non-technical user, right? They can come into Claude, they can ask it questions in natural language. So Salesforce is my source of truth where I'm taking these technographics, the contact data, all of those things. And then I'm interacting with it through Claude using a Salesforce MCP that's built online. And I can send you the link afterwards where I've written about this if you want to drop it in the comments or whatever. But that seems to be what's worked. And no one's fully figured this out yet. Like the permissions are not sorted. And that's just because Claude hasn't built in certain permissions. It's just so new. But you can kind of see that first I can help me. And now the mission, now that I've helped myself, is to try help more of the company have what I have. And my end goal, to be honest, is just to replace myself. Like I want to replace myself at Bibliu, and then they can fire me or do whatever.
The
and
same agent. You can fire me, but you'll always have the same agent.
Yeah, exactly. That is the end goal. I literally want to obsolete myself and then go and fractionalize myself at a load of other places. Because then we can all just spend more time speaking to people who actually care about what we have to say, and we can say more useful things. I'm also just very short SaaS. Like the reason why I pick Anthropic and Claude, do you want to compete against them? I don't. So I'm like, I'll put my bet there with software, and then everything I'm doing is effectively a service layer. And it doesn't really matter what tool people have in a lot of these instances. So what I do for contacts, for example, I I go into I go into the terminal, have the Salesforce command line set up with Claude code, and then I have the Apollo API connected up as well. And I will basically ask it on a regular frequency to go through all the key contacts that we care about, validate that they're still in role. If they're not still in role, flip them to former, update the marking on their contact, and then find a new one. So this is all just like the combing through that's going on a regular cadence. But tool agnostic, whatever people have, you're probably over-tooled and under-engineered. That's like the story of pretty much every sales team. You're over-tooled and under-engineered, and you could probably get rid of a lot of that and do a lot more with less. But it's just, do you want to find the guy who doesn't really leave his bedroom, spends too much time on X to go solve that for you? And I guess that's where I'm trying to put myself.
Well, thank you for all your insight today. As we close out in our last couple of minutes here, you've talked about a lot of tools, ways you're using it, and I know there are going to be sales managers, reps, there's going to be AI enthusiasts listening to this call. And I've seen this a lot in my work and some colleagues. There are people that want to use more AI tools at their work. And let's say they want to connect Salesforce API to a Claude instance or ChatGPT. What advice would you give to those managers, those reps, or maybe there's that founder of a startup that wants to give some more permission, at least, to somebody internally to use AI tools more? What advice would you give to have that link set up between Salesforce and the Claude in a way that's secure and that can still be a win for all parties so they can get the most out of it?
Yeah, I think at the moment, the way that you can unlock the most value is just see all of the people in your sales team as customers. Like, you're not trying to force them to adopt anything. You're just trying to serve them so they can do more of what they do, which is speak to right people, right time, right message, and relevant information. How you can do that, and my number one piece of advice would be, don't be scared of the terminal. Like, I know it looks intimidating if you're not a technical user because you open it up and it's got kind of like the typewriter style text. Don't be scared of the terminal. Install Claude code on the terminal, connect it up to one of your tools and just start asking it questions. And so Salesforce would be a good example if you're a Salesforce shop. And you will just see how powerful that is. Like, you can quickly start finding out just where all the clutter is in your CRM. So the first thing, if someone's in a job like me, open the terminal, connect it up to Salesforce, and just ask it questions about your existing ops and your existing structure, and you'll start to see mess. Then give it small basic tasks that are basically small cleaning tasks. You'll be surprised how much you can achieve. And when you don't know something, I know this is an annoying answer.
But yeah, Sam, thanks for hopping on today. It was great to hear all your insights, learn about all the ways that you're using AI in your work. For everyone listening, where can people find you? Where are the best places to get more advice from you and what you're doing?
Yeah, for sure. So thanks very much, by the way. I've enjoyed it. I'm on LinkedIn is where I consistently post, I guess, just because that's where most of the higher ed sellers seem to be. So just Sam Holding. I have a little cowboy hat emoji by my name. They might also find this interesting, little subreddit. So r/EduSales USA. That's where
On your shirt too.
Yeah, actually, I'm trying to. I had this made. Yeah, kind of. It's not the best quality T-shirt, so if anyone wants one, I think I've got some spare, but you probably don't. And then my agency's on Spurzo.com, and there's also. But my number one piece of advice, I'm on there as well. If you go down, train your Twitter feed to show you useful AI sales stuff instead of just like brain rot, and you'll be surprised how much you learn. So I'm on there as well as Roman Kid.
Alrighty. Well, Sam, thank you. I appreciate it again, and thanks for being on the show today.
Thanks, Griffin. I enjoyed it, and if you find yourself in Austin, let me know.
For sure.
Thanks, mate. Bye.